What is going on, Alabama fans? Appreciate you guys for joining us on today's show. We're going to be talking about ESPN listing their top areas of concern for Alabama going into the 2025 season. Also, we touched on the PFF player rankings the other day. Today, we're going to talk about their top 10 coaching rankings, why I think Kalen DeBoer might be a little bit too low on their list. But first, we kind of asked this question the other day as well, but kind of fits more with this video, so kind of wanted to ask it a different kind of a way. What is your biggest area of concern for Alabama in 2025? Is it the coaching staff? Is it a specific position group? Is it anything else that you guys can think of? The only caveat here, you cannot say special teams, because in my opinion, that's a little bit of a cop-out kind of answer. All right, so ESPN, Chris Lowe was actually the guy in charge of listing what the biggest area of concern was. He was, kind of assigned to Alabama for this one, and he thought Alabama's pass rush was going to be the biggest area of concern for Alabama in 2025. Before we get into, kind of what I think about this is what Chris Lowe had to say during that ESPN article. He said Alabama finished 13th in the SEC last season in quarterback sacks, and while sacks aren't the end-all be-all when it comes to rushing the passer, the Crimson Tide need to be more consistent in getting to the opposing quarterback. I definitely agree with the consistency part. I didn't think Alabama was very consistent last year in that department. He also continued on saying there is not a pure edge rusher in the mold of Will Anderson or Dallas Turner on this roster, meaning Alabama will need to get more pressure from its interior linemen and perhaps a breakout season from redshirt sophomore outside linebacker Qua Russaw. Now, in terms of the pass rusher thing, I kind of think Qua Russaw is from that same mold as a Will Anderson, as a Dallas Turner as well. I think, he just hasn't gotten there yet. I think it, is going to take him a little bit more time than those guys did. Looking back to last year and the top pass rushing stats for Alabama. Jihaad Campbell obviously was your main guy last year. Had 20 pressures on the quarterback. You also had Quandarius Robinson, I thought, stepped up big time for Alabama. Fortunately, he ended up, getting injured kind of later on in the season there. But you talk about the consistency. It really wasn't there. And LT Overton as well at that bandit spot. I think he's going to be a guy that really, has the ability to step up because you see right there, led the entire team in 39 pressures, but only had 2 sacks and 3 tackles for loss. So I think, he kind of called out Quandarius Robinson as being a guy like that, but, LT Overton is also kind of, in my opinion, going to be the guy that really needs to step up for Alabama in terms of the pass rushing department next season. So let me know at the pinned comment of today's video, who do you guys think will lead Alabama in sacks next season? Let me know what you guys think down at the pinned comment of today's video. Now, Chris Lowe did bring up Qua Russaw, so I wanted to bring him up a little bit as well. Look, last season, I thought, was just kind of the peak of it. I think we're still going to get more out of Qua Russaw this season. He kind of got banged up a little bit last year too, but same thing there. 13 pressures last season. Also had 2 interceptions, which I do think is very impressive from that perspective as well. But, Kane Womack was also asked about the pass rush during the springtime and just kind of, guys like Qua Russaw and LT Overton, how are they going to be able to finish better, getting sacks and not just have a ton of pressures, because at the end of the day, pressures don't really matter if you're not bringing down the quarterback. Kane Womack said this during the springtime. He said, well, I think I've got to do some things a little bit better to help them out, right? If you can get indicators that there is a pass, all of our calls have a mentality that when we recognize pass, we might run a pattern or a blitz where we step on the toes of the offensive guard and then work into the A gap or widen yourself out as a pass rusher. Just those little nuances. We're going to try to work on those things and give them a chance to go cut it loose off the edge. So, I really do appreciate the fact that Kane Womack is saying, hey, the coaching staff can be a little bit better too. We can go out there and we can, do a little bit better whether it comes to, play calls or just doing better during the week to work on those things. I think Alabama is really going to be improved going into year 2 under this new defensive system from Kane Womack. Now, we'll continue on here in just a second, but first want to give a shout-out to our friends over at Fanatics. You guys can get what I am calling the Kalen DeBoer hat right here. It is on sale for a really, really good price right now. All you guys got to do is go over to chatsports.com/DeBoer hat. It was $25 on sale now for only $8. So a massive sale there. It is that performance dry fit as well. So it is getting hot right now, and you guys can, keep your head cool during the summertime, whether you're out gardening or doing yard work or doing whatever it is. You guys can stay cool by getting this Kalen DeBoer hat. What I'm calling it anyways. Just go to chatsports.com/DeBoer hat. Now, I think going into this season, Alabama's linebacker core is going to be really solid. You have 3 guys up there in Justin Jefferson, Deontae Lawson, and Nakai Hill-Green who have a ton of playing experience. And hopefully Deontae Lawson's going to be that dude this year coming back from injury. Talked about Qua Russaw. I think Jeremiah Latham is going to be able to step up as well. We'll see if Deontae Pierre gets a little bit of work there at that Wolf spot too, but I really like what he can bring to the table. It's just going to be a matter of, can he get on the field with Qua Russaw and Jeremiah Latham being there at that Wolf position. And then Chris Lowe also touched on the fact that, the interior of your defensive line could be a little bit better and they could help you out a little bit more as well. I think James Smith and Jeremiah Beaman are going to be those dudes on the interior. Love Tim Keenan. I just kind of think he's going to be a little bit more of a, run stuffer for you. And then those bandit guys, Jordan Renaud, whether Keon Keeley gets some opportunity, maybe even Kelby Collins gets some opportunity, but kind of like we said earlier, LT Overton, I think, is going to be that main, make or break guy when it comes to actually finishing, getting some of those sacks on the quarterback because, like I said earlier, pressures are nice, but it really doesn't matter if you can't get the quarterback to the ground. And we also touched on this a little bit the other day as well during those PFF rankings, but PFF, now, I also do want to make note, it's a little bit different. That's Pro Football Focus. We're touching on an ESPN article here, but I do think, it kind of correlates kind of the same way. They had Alabama's defensive line ranked as the number 2 defensive line in the country. Also, their linebacker core, the number 8 linebackers in the country. And I do think your linebackers could be ranked a little bit higher. We talked about the fact that they have a ton of playing experience. I think it all is just going to come down to how is Deontae Lawson going to be coming back from that injury. They had him ranked as the number 7 linebacker in the country, and Tim Keenan as well as the number 3 interior defensive lineman in the country as well. So, when it comes to these ESPN rankings and their biggest concern, I don't necessarily think I'm sold on pass rush being the biggest area of concern for Alabama. You think about their secondary as well. That's going to give them a lot of extra time to be able to also get to the quarterback. So, you talk about that, I think I'm a little bit, honestly, more concerned with the run game, to be honest with you guys, because, you talk about some of the struggles that Alabama has had in the past couple of seasons. You go against a running quarterback or some of these, weird kind of gadget types of offenses, that's when this Alabama defense, especially the defensive line, kind of starts to break down a little bit. Now, does that mean they can't improve in year 2 under Kane Womack? No, that absolutely does not mean that. In fact, I think they will get a little bit better this year. But, if we're talking about what actually does concern me more, I think run defense actually concerns me a little bit more than the pass rush does. So let me know what you guys think here in the comments section. What concerns you more? Is it the run defense or is it the pass rush? Let me know what you guys think. Type R for the run defense or P if you think it's the pass rush. All right, like we mentioned earlier as well, Pro Football Focus put out their head coaching rankings and had the top 10 head coaches in the country. And, I don't necessarily totally agree with this list here, but I do think Kalen DeBoer should be a little bit higher for, some specific reasons here. We'll start from the top. Kirby Smart, probably right, being the number 1 coach in the country there. Ryan Day, maybe a little bit of a recency bias there. He has won one national championship now, so okay, and it was this past year as well. Dabo Swinney has had a couple of down years, but they're still at the top of the ACC. They won the ACC last year. He's got the national championship pedigree. This number 4 is where I kind of start taking a little bit of an issue to it. Dan Lanning at number 4. And while I like Dan Lanning, I wouldn't have been opposed to Dan Lanning being hired as Alabama's head coach after Nick Saban retired. But let's be completely honest here. Kalen DeBoer is like 5-0 against both Dan Lanning and Steve Sarkisian. And in his time here at Alabama, they're, recruiting at a little bit of a higher level as well. So, I like Marcus Freeman. He has made it to a national championship game, something that Dan Lanning and Steve Sarkisian cannot say or put on their resumes. So, I'd probably put Marcus Freeman at 4 and then Kalen DeBoer at 5 and then Dan Lanning at 6, Steve Sarkisian at 7 there. And it's kind of a cluster after that. It's like, Penn State is a good football team, but they can't win the big games. Kind of the same thing with LSU there. And then I'll be honest, I probably would have put, Mario Cristobal there at number 10. Outside of one 10-win season for Indiana, I don't really know what else Kirk Cignetti has done. Maybe that's that recency bias and the hype as well. But I do think Kalen DeBoer probably should be, I would say probably 5 on this list. Maybe put Marcus Freeman at 4 and then Kalen DeBoer at 5 there. But, it's whatever. These are, the PFF head coach rankings. It is what it is. I'm not going to get, super angry about it or anything. But let me know what you guys think. I want you to rank Kalen DeBoer amongst all college football head coaches. Is he in the top 10? Is he in the top 5? Is he in the top 3 for you? I want to hear from you guys down in the comment section of today's show.